I'm Anna. I'm a mind and body transformation specialist and I'm a new certified nutritionist. And today we'll be talking with Tamar. So please, Tamar, tell me a little bit about yourself, who you are.
Hey, hi. Yeah, so I'm Tamar. Thanks, first of all, for pronouncing that right, because no one ever says my name right. So great start, strong start. So I'm a nutritionist as well. I work predominantly with athletes and regular exercisers. But I do like to bridge the gap between kind of sport nutrition and taking a holistic approach with also looking at just health performance for life, well-being, hormones, the whole lot. So just not treating people like robots, treating them as well-rounded human beings.
I absolutely agree with that. Definitely. That's 100% what I follow myself and with my clients. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Cool. So today I want to talk about, and we was thinking about different topics. We have so many things in common, and so many things we feel that it's important to share to others. But we decided to start with the topic: how does food affect our personality? And we'll cover 3 areas of about the quality of the food, how certain foods make us addictive, and create addiction to foods, and how actually food affects the foods we eat, what it's actually doing with our bodies and our mind, and how it can affect our moods, our personalities, our identities, and to that kind of depth. So first of all, quality of the food. I think it's like the two main areas, like the food that is not as healthy and considered more like a junk food or like a treat, and versus with the food that is more healthy, more nutritious, and is good for us in the long term. So what we're dealing with here is that's called like a junk food, like processed junk food. You get the instant reward when you eat that food. You instantly feel good. It tastes so nice. You enjoy it, and it's an instant gratification. Versus foods that maybe are not so rich in flavor. When you eat them, you might not feel that they're so rich in the flavor and taste, but it will give you that gratification and rewards later. So it's basically instant reward versus delayed gratification, which it doesn't mean that nutritious foods is unhealthy. It doesn't mean that nutritious foods has to taste blind and just boring, and we'll talk about it a little bit more. It's more that actual the difference, because sometimes people don't really think about it. I think that the psychological effects, how it makes us feel, it actually releases the dopamine. The junk food, when you eat them, it releases dopamine in our brain and makes us feel good. And the more concentrated the junk food is, like more sweet, sugar and fat and other components it has, the higher dopamine release, which just kind of makes sense. But then the question is it good? Like, yeah, it makes us feel good for that moment, but is it good for the long term? And wouldn't it be better to eat something more nutritious, but also make it taste nice? And that's something I'm very passionate about it. Healthy food doesn't have to be boring. So yeah, basically my first point is about what it's about what you want versus what you want more. You want to eat that burger now, or do you want to have your dream body later? What do you want more? This is the choice people make. What are you thinking, Timar?
I think we probably work very similarly as coaches, and I know obviously you do a lot of kind of life coaching, mindset coaching as well. And something I find myself speaking with my clients a lot with is about not being so reactive and being responsive. We live in the Western world where we're geared up to get everything fast, whatever we want, whenever we want it. And so we're kind of wired for this instant gratification. And we get a craving out of nowhere. And actually what it could have been that we were driving down the road 2 hours ago, and without even realizing it, we saw a poster for a fast food chain. didn't even realize it, but it's gone into our brain subliminally, and then we find ourselves craving it later on. And so we can end up being very reactive. And I love what you said about actually stopping to think about what you want more in that moment. Do you want that burger now, or do you want long-term health? Have you got an aesthetic goal? Have you got a fat loss goal? Is it a performance goal because you want to be the best lifter you can in the gym? And so I always really encourage my clients to take the stop whenever they get a craving. Take the stop, question, what am I really feeling? Am I really hungry right now? Does this align with my goal? Could I have something else? Is there a better option right now? And, you know, I think another thing is a lot of people have got so caught up with counting calories. They're not counting micronutrients.
Yeah.
And they'll often go like, oh, I'm going to open my Fitness Pal. I can eat this burger. Yeah, maybe you can eat it. Great. And from a calorie perspective, will you still reach your goals? Yes. But you might feel absolutely horrendous for eating that thing. Yeah. So a lot of people, you know, come to us as coaches saying like, oh, I have low energy. I have low mood. I get irritable. I get depressed. And then you look at what they're eating and they're very reactive. They give into their cravings all the time. And so they get this fast dopamine release, which you mentioned, and obviously we'll speak about that later. They get this fast dopamine release that, yeah, makes them feel great in the moment. But as quickly as that roller coaster goes up, it goes back down. Yeah. And they're left feeling horrible. And usually that's because they've disrupted their gut biome with what they've eaten, which is very closely linked to the brain. And so, yeah, what do you want? Do you want to feel that instant gratification for 5 minutes and then feel rubbish afterwards? Or do you want to eat something that's going to give you a nice, sustained, happy, like dopamine release in a nice, even fashion that's going to make you feel good for longer? So you can tell I'm passionate about this. I could rant about it all day.
Absolutely. I'm the same. Honestly, I think sometimes it's people just get so caught up with the life and with problems and with conditioning. As you mentioned, you see a advertisement while driving, when you walk past and you see like a nice McDonald's burger, you know you can get it in like 1 minute, served to you nice and warm and tasty. Everything's so fast and easy, and plus conditioning of everywhere you go, you will see everything, you know, fast, super tasty, enriched with whatever it takes to make it irresistible. But this is exactly the point they're trying to make. People who produce all those tasty junk foods, all kind of foods, that's the goal, to make it irresistible, to make it so tasty that people overeat. Their goal is not for you to be healthy, you know, I'm talking about, you know, the actual like the junk and healthy foods. Their goal to make it irresistible is carefully designed recipes of exact amounts of sugar and fat and other stuff that makes it that way. So it's important to I think to understand that it's not natural for our bodies to eat a lot of foods like that have been heavily processed and designed like in factories, and a lot of ingredients that are kind of like dead ingredients, just like man-made or highly processed. We are not meant to eat food like that. And well, we just been kind of conditioned to think that, you know, it's normal, it's okay, it's everywhere, it's cheap, and it's easy. Really, it doesn't have to be like that. You can break that pattern of feeling, you know, you kind of get, it takes us to the next point, you get to the like addiction to unhealthy foods, which is not obviously physical addiction, but it's a psychological addiction to obviously to dopamine release, to parts of it is like psychological reasons for like numbing some emotions or pain. That's a different topic. But I think to change that addiction, sometimes people are aware that, you know, they crave junk food, and the more they eat it, the more they want it. You know, people know that. But I think often when they do it, they stop it and then eat very blind foods instead, and they don't provide anything, you know, instead of that pleasure they get from eating junk food, they swap it to healthy but not very tasty food, and they don't get any pleasure. Instead, they just basically, they had a pleasure and then gone away. Now it's just nothing. So I think it's important to change it, to replace it with something else, like cooking something healthy that is actually, you actually want to eat it, preparing it yourself. So when you give the energy to preparing food, it will taste better, you will appreciate it, so you'll get that satisfaction, and the sense of the pleasure, really, but not pleasure of just quickly eating and following your instinct of hunger, but instead, you took time, you prepared food, you thought about it. Or even mindful eating, when you train yourself to eat mindfully, you get satisfaction from just eating. And it doesn't have to be like super rich and creamy and saucy and all that kind of stuff. It can be simple food, but when you're mindful, when you sit down and fully enjoy it, that it brings a different kind of satisfaction rather than just taste. It brings you something much more fulfilling, I would say.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. You've just brought out so many good points there. And I think just to kind of start back from what you were saying about what's normal versus what's natural. So again, the way that we live in this westernized world, everyone's like, oh, I just want to eat normal. But what has become normal is not what is natural, is not what our bodies were designed to have. And we have become so out of touch with what our bodies need. Sometimes we get a craving and we don't even understand what it is, but our bodies are smart, they will try and tell us what we need, and they will be satisfied when we give it good, healthy foods as well. But a lot of the time, people have dieted so much, they've tried so many different fad diets, or they're so confused by messages in the media, they can't even read their own bodies anymore. So it's almost impossible for them to be intuitive, because they're like, I don't know what's going on, physiology, So yeah, absolutely. Our bodies are designed to tell us when we're full and satisfied. That's why we have ghrelin and leptin. Okay. Yeah. So, and our bodies will tell us if we are deficient. Usually at some point we'll really start craving some spinach or some broccoli or some steak. And it's like, oh, well, hello, that's because we're deficient and our body's telling us to eat more. So I think anyone who's watching this should really be encouraged to kind of tune into what their body is actually telling them they need, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as you said, it can be hard because of many different factors, the conditioning in terms of food and in terms of over conditioning, and we a lot of people find themselves just being disconnected from their bodies. But it's not something that you can change. It's pretty easy to change it by changing, probably starting with your nutrition first. So I believe when you change your nutrition, everything else will change. If you're in a quite bad place, if you have bad habits, if you really want to improve your life and achieve some goals or whatever it is, I think the number one thing is to actually look at your foods, because that takes us to the third point, how foods actually affect who we are, not just how we feel, and but more who we are, because how we feel will affect who we are as a person. So everything starts with a thought. Thoughts starts in your head, and thoughts produce emotions, and because of emotion you make some action, and then some results. So everything started really from a thought. But just when you think about it, if you remember some time when you had lots of junk food, maybe alcohol as well, that's another thing. But this kind of goes together with the junk food. It's kind of very similar. So if you have something like that, and then next day you probably don't feel great. I had this experience myself recently. I don't normally drink, and I went down and had too many spirits and different processed foods. And next day, for the couple of days, I felt heavily depressed. I won't even exaggerate, because it was nothing. When you think about it to the full depth, it was only my thoughts. Yeah, I was feeling hungover, but physical feeling is can deal with it. But it was my thoughts that was like, oh, these doubts, insecurities, feeling that I'm not good enough, feeling not happy about my body. And this just made me think, how when you actually look at what you're consuming, and if it's not like alive and nutritious, if it doesn't have nutrients and vitamins in it, you need to ask what's in it and how is it gonna affect my body. Because when you put it into your body, that thing becomes part of you. Like some people don't really think about it, like because it's kind of deep subject. Like you eat food, and then obviously some of it goes out, the physical toilet, but the rest is actual like the substance that creates our body. So you build muscles, you gain body fat, or whatever it is. So when you think about on that kind of level, like when you pick up the piece of food or whatever you want to eat, and you ask yourself, what's in it? How has it been made? How is it actually going to affect what it's going to do inside my body? Because it's going to be weird. It's crazy, isn't it?
I mean, the power of food is so greatly underestimated. I've had a few clients that I've worked with that came to me on antidepressants and were able to come off of them just by changing their diet. So I mentioned earlier about the brain and the gut being linked. If we think about serotonin, so that's a neurotransmitter that affects our mood, our stress response, even our sex drive. Okay. Now, 90% of our body's serotonin, which affects our brain, it's produced in our gut.
That's crazy.
So if our gut biome is out of whack because we've eaten a load of inflammatory, highly processed, low nutrients worth foods, or had a load of alcohol, it messes up our gut biome. Okay. And if our gut biome, that's the natural bacteria in our gut, if they're not happy, that will chemically affect what is going on in our brain. And so when people start to eat natural whole foods that contain dopamine, which we were discussing earlier, rather than going for like chocolate or sweets that are going to give us a quick dopamine fix, if they swap those out for sustained release dopamine foods, they are going to get a much healthier, happier gut biome and a nice steady release of all these happy feel-good hormones. And then are less likely, I'm not saying this is a cure-all, of course, because mental health is another topic that we could probably make another whole video on. But it can certainly help. And I always think it's so important to do what we can within our power. We don't have perfect bodies. There will always be some things out of our control that we may need medical help for. But you, every single day, have the power to control what you put into your body, the thoughts that you have towards yourself, the way you approach life. And so if you can transform yourself by controlling just what you can control, the other stuff's not going to be as bad.
Absolutely. Just so obvious when you think about it. But even me, I'm a coach and nutritionist, and I've been for nearly 6 years. I didn't think about it in so much depth before. Like I've learned a lot about nutrition. I think you have to go through the phase of gaining the knowledge. But sometimes, like even when you have the knowledge, you still kind of follow the path of conditioning, and you kind of what you believe that this is healthy, cereal is healthy, everyone should eat breakfast. I don't know, any other things, like you kind of don't question it, and you kind of because it's a lot of responsibility to know everything and to question everything. So we kind of simplify it, and it's okay if someone's never really questioned it, it's fine. But once you start questioning more and basically listening to your body, like how do you feel, what's happening, and then think, oh my God, like I never thought about it in so much depth that food is literally making like us as a, is defining your identity. Like it's crazy, because if you eat junk food, like you said, like, oh, what is going to happen with your body, how the good is going to affect how you think, and obviously how you think. If you have so many junk thoughts, you're not going to make good actions. You're going to get stuck in whatever you're going through. It's so interesting.
Yeah. And, you know, even outside of junk food, there are so many simple things that we can do to regulate our mood. So one of them is to eat regularly enough to tune into when we're hungry to avoid blood sugar drops. And it's very important with that to remember that hunger doesn't always manifest as a rumble in the stomach. It can be a loss of concentration, it can be fatigue, it can be irritability. Caffeine, you know, it can be used to great effect, but if we have too much, it can make us feel very ratty. And water as well, you know, just being hydrated. There are just basic things that people could start implementing within their daily lives without actually even overhauling their whole diet. It's just about being a bit more conscious about maintenance, upkeep of your body, you know. And I say to people, again, because a lot of my clients are athletes, you know, they go to the gym 3-4 times a week. I'm sure your clients do as well, you know, with the programming you give them. They'll train 3-4 times a week with the view of making that muscle stronger, getting better at a particular exercise or a lift. And they put all of that effort into doing that, but they don't implement the same focus and intent with their thoughts and their behaviors. So the only way you grow a muscle is by training that muscle regularly, keeping it strong. The only way we train our brains to make better choices, the only way we maintain our bodies to be happier and healthier is by using that same level of intent with our choices every day. It comes down to discipline and looking at that long game, like you mentioned earlier. Forget instant gratification. What do you want in the long term? How long do you want to live for? And what kind of a partner do you want to be? Do you want to be a happy, upbeat, energized partner with a high sex drive? Do you want to be that fun mum that runs around playing in the park? Or do you want to be tired and ratty and irritable all the time? You know, the choice is yours.
I know, that's really straight to the point. Like, it's crazy because it feels like, oh, I'm just hungry, I'll just grab this pack of crisps and chocolate. But these are the decisions you're making. You're actually reducing the quality of your life, as you said, as a partner, as a parent, as a friend, as a business, or your career, everything. Like your mental capacity drops, and you know that's the main thing. You know, when you don't eat well, when you're not hydrated. It's very, very interesting. So I would like you to ask one advice that you would give to the people, like a short 1-minute advice of how to approach this. If they're so new to it, they never really thought about it so much depth. What would be your advice? You kind of already said that, but maybe just summarize.
Okay, yeah. So if someone's completely new to this, and they've got a lot that they probably need to change in their lives, what I would say is keep a diary for a week. Write down every single thing that passes your lips, food and drink. And maybe while you're doing that journaling, also write down your thoughts, your feelings, your triggers for having that food first, and then also how you felt afterwards. Think about your energy levels, your cognition with work neurally. Were you really productive, or were you slow and sluggish after eating something? Did you feel like you needed a nap? Identify those things, because first of all, that's just going to help start with mindfulness. And then following that, what I would say is gradually change one habit at a time, master it, and then add in another one. So it might be starting with something as simple as I'm not drinking enough water. So I'm going to start having, more water, 2 litres a day, 3 litres a day. Master that, make it a part of your daily routine. You've trained that muscle in your brain, that habit to tell you to have the water. So now you can level up and you can add in, I am going to look at micronutrients rather than calories, and maybe educate yourself on where you can get your omega-3s and your 6s for brain health, or fermented foods for your gut biome, and start to see what you can add into your diet. Don't worry about eliminating things straight away. Add in the beneficial stuff first.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great advice. As you said, keeping a logbook, listening to your body, and taking one habit at a time rather than changing your whole life straight away. That's something, to be honest, when I asked you, that's what I wanted to share. The first thing you said about keeping a food diary. I think if someone was like listening and think, oh yeah, this is right, you agree, but they just feel overwhelmed with like what to eat, how to change it, like what are the right foods for me, how do I know, how do I tune in into my intuition? So if they're feeling like that, I think that's what I wanted to say is listen to your body and have a logbook. Like when you write things down and they're not in your head, they're on the paper, it'll be more clear for you to see. And you will notice that, oh, when I eat these foods, I feel sluggish. When I eat too late in the evening, I don't sleep well. Or, for some people, maybe if they don't, when they eat, they actually don't like eating breakfast, and they kind of have that feeling that they have to. That was one of my clients. She recently overcome that kind of feeling that I must eat breakfast. And when I told her, like, you don't, like, it's okay. And she was so happy that, oh, I don't have to eat breakfast anymore. And it's amazing, things like that. You kind of like become more in tune with yourself and realize what limiting beliefs you might have picked up along the way, just from many years of growing up, being, just listening, and we're not aware of those kind of beliefs. So yeah, basically keeping the logbook, like of your food for a week, can teach you so much about yourself.
Yeah, definitely, Anna. We all have the answers inside of us for what we need, in whatever you're looking at in life, I think. And if you're not at a point where you're ready to get a coach or a nutritionist, to help you on that journey, there's so much that you can still do yourselves in a logbook. Seeing the power of writing, seeing things in black and white, because it's easy to forget, and we conveniently forget what we don't want to acknowledge. So, if you're really honest with yourself and you write in a logbook, I think it's great. And I remember I've read things that you've written before about doing that with training as well.
Oh yeah.
Keeping the training, and they are such powerful tools, and a really good reference as well to look back on and see where you've come from and how much you've progressed. On days where maybe you're feeling a bit low or lacking in confidence, you can remind yourself, well, no, I'm putting in the efforts and I've done a lot.
Yeah, and you see where you started. Where, how far you come, you've come and improving. Yeah, definitely writing things down. We have so many similarities in the way we work. It's interesting. Yeah, so it was lovely to chat with you and just get your opinion on different. Like I said, we are similar, but we have differences, and I think it's important to share that knowledge to share it with people. So if anyone has any questions or has any other topics in mind that you want us to discuss, you can message us directly. So what are your social media and other platforms, YouTube, anything else?
Yeah, so found under Fueled by Macros, FUELLED BYMACROS, Fueled by Macro, across everything. And I would love to come back and do some more Q&As with you. It'd be great. So thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. And if anyone has any questions for me, you can find me on Instagram, Lean and Strong Coaching, on Facebook, also the same name, business page, on my personal page as well, Anna Polujan. and the YouTube, Lean and Strong. So that's all for today. Thank you so much for being here, and see you later.
Bye.